Have you ever sat there asking yourself, why does he treat her like a queen and me like an option? It's not about how beautiful, smart, or kind you are. It's about something deeper that men sense before you even speak. Your mindset. Most women don't realize this, but men subconsciously respond to the energy you walk into the room with. Not your looks, not your charm, but your internal belief about your worth and how much of yourself you're willing to give without being asked for it. In this video, I'm not just going to throw around generic advice like be confident or know your worth. You've heard that before and it hasn't worked. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because no one's shown you how to rewire your mindset from the inside out. You're going to learn a very specific shift that high-value women naturally embody, even if they've never read a dating book in their lives. This mindset doesn't just change how men treat you. It changes who you allow into your life, how fast they fall, and how deeply they stay. Because the truth is, men can feel when a woman is rooted in herself versus reaching for approval. And once you flip that switch, you stop begging for breadcrumbs and start attracting real connection effortlessly. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not theory, it's strategy, it's energy, and it's what finally sets you free from the cycles that have held you back for years. Let's dive in. When we think of attraction, most people focus on appearance, charm, or how well someone communicates. But what actually shifts the way a man feels about a woman, what really locks in his respect and desire, is her emotional strength, not her availability, not her sweetness, but the way she holds herself when emotions are running high, when things are unclear, or when a man starts to pull away. Men instinctively respond to a woman who knows who she is, emotionally. She doesn't panic when things don't go her way. She doesn't beg for reassurance. She doesn't try to prove her worth with constant effort. Instead, she remains grounded, calm, and self-possessed. That kind of energy is not just attractive, it's rare. And when something is rare, it becomes valuable. This doesn't mean she never feels anxious or emotional. It means she knows how to process those feelings without handing them to someone else to fix. She doesn't ask a man to be her emotional oxygen. That self-regulated, steady presence is exactly what makes a man feel safe to be around her. Not because she's overly nurturing or endlessly patient, but because she doesn't lose herself in him. She makes him feel like he has space to lead, to rise, to pursue, but never to take advantage. And here's what's important. When a woman operates from this place of internal strength, it triggers one of two reactions in men. The immature ones, the avoidant, the insecure, the power seekers will feel intimidated or frustrated because they can't control her emotionally. But the emotionally mature ones, they lean in, they respect it, they step up because they realize they're dealing with someone who doesn't tolerate confusion, inconsistency, or emotional chaos. The more emotionally strong you are, the more you attract men who are clear, consistent, and ready. You stop being a magnet for emotionally unavailable people. Why? Because you're no longer available for that energy. You don't engage with drama. You don't collapse into overgiving. You stay in your peace. And peace is powerful. A lot of women were taught that strength in dating looks like being accommodating, always understanding, never walking away. But real strength is knowing when to lean back, when to say less, and when to protect your emotional world, even if it means risking someone walking away. And ironically, that's exactly what makes the right men stay. It's not because you're playing hard to get, it's because your emotional strength signals that you are not a woman to take for granted. So if you've ever felt like you had to do more to keep a man interested, pause, breathe. Let him experience the strength of a woman who doesn't chase love. She attracts it by being fully rooted in her own worth. There's a type of woman who walks into a room, says almost nothing, and yet every man notices her. It's not about how she's dressed. It's not about her smile or the way she speaks. It's something deeper, something you can't fake. That something is confidence. And it's a completely different energy from neediness, which most people confuse with being emotionally open or affectionate. Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't try to prove. It doesn't need permission to exist. It simply is. And men feel it immediately. It's the kind of presence that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I'm not here to convince anyone of my worth. On the flip side, neediness is a kind of emotional hunger, a silent message that says, please choose me so I can feel okay. And no matter how well someone hides it, that energy leaks through in small ways, over-explaining, over-checking in, reacting too quickly to silence, needing reassurance at every turn. It creates pressure, not connection. And men instinctively pull away from that, not because they're heartless, but because pressure doesn't feel like peace. It feels like responsibility, like emotional weight they're not ready to carry. The energy of confidence, however, gives a man room to pursue, to lean in, to choose you of his own free will. It's not about games. It's about creating emotional safety, not just for him, but for you. A confident woman isn't afraid of silence, distance, or uncertainty. She doesn't chase answers. She allows things to unfold. Why? Because her sense of self isn't tied to someone else's behavior. Her worth isn't waiting for validation. It's already intact. And that energy, it's irresistible. Here's the truth. Confident women attract more than just attention. They attract effort. They inspire action. They make a man want to step into his masculine energy because he senses that she doesn't need him to be whole, but she's open to building something powerful with him. That's a very different dynamic from someone who shows up with invisible strings, hoping love will fix something inside of them. Neediness often comes from fear, fear of loss, fear of being alone, fear of not being chosen. Confidence comes from self-trust, the knowing that no matter what happens, you'll handle it with grace. You won't shrink to keep someone, you won't break if they walk away, and you definitely won't beg for breadcrumbs. That shift from grasping to grounded, from urgency to ease, is what changes everything. It's not something you manufacture overnight. It's a mindset you build moment by moment, by choosing to be more anchored in yourself than in the outcome of a relationship. When you carry that kind of energy, you stop trying to get love. You start receiving it, naturally, consistently, and from the kind of man who sees your value without you having to convince him. That's the real glow-up. Have you ever noticed that some women don't have to raise their voice, issue ultimatums, or explain themselves over and over, yet they're always respected? Men don't play games with them. They don't disappear, breadcrumb, or cross lines. And it's not because these women are cold or distant. It's because they have boundaries so clear and strong. They don't even need to be spoken out loud. Boundaries aren't about building walls. They're about embodying standards, not in what you say, but in how you carry yourself. They show up in your tone, your timing, your responses, and even your silence. A woman with boundaries doesn't need to announce them. Her energy speaks louder than her words. For example, when a man pulls back or acts inconsistently, a woman with strong boundaries doesn't chase. She doesn't send the just checking in text. She doesn't spiral or beg for clarity. She creates space, not as a punishment, but as a natural response to behavior that doesn't align with her. And that space is powerful. It communicates, I'm not here to fight for scraps. I'm here to receive consistency. The way you respond when someone tests your limits shows them exactly what they can get away with. If you keep forgiving disrespect without action, if you keep staying silent to keep the peace, or if you explain your worth over and over, you're teaching them that your boundaries are flexible, that your standards are optional. And the more you let things slide, the harder it becomes to command genuine respect. But the opposite is just as true. The moment you stop over-explaining yourself, the moment you stop proving your value, and the moment you stop tolerating confusion, people start to notice. They feel the shift. Men especially notice when a woman no longer entertains behavior that drains her. She's not angry. She's just unavailable for nonsense. And that energy shifts the entire dynamic. Boundaries also protect your emotional energy. When you honor them, you stop giving access to people who haven't earned your trust. You stop answering late-night texts from inconsistent men. You stop opening your heart to people who only show up halfway. And by doing that, you create emotional space for someone who actually wants to be there fully. You don't need to lecture someone about how you deserve more. You just need to show it, with your choices, with your time, with your silence when necessary. Boundaries are not about control. They're about clarity. They say, this is who I am. This is what I accept. and anything less than that simply won't last in my world. And once you start living that truth, not talking about it, but embodying it, you won't have to demand respect. It will be the only thing you attract, because the people who belong in your life will never feel threatened by your boundaries. They'll be drawn to them. That's how you command respect, without saying a word. One of the biggest patterns that keeps women stuck in one-sided, unfulfilling relationships is getting emotionally invested too quickly, before a man has shown through consistent action that he deserves that level of access. And the worst part? Most women don't even realize they're doing it. It often starts with innocent hope, emotional openness, or the excitement of a new connection. But before long, it becomes attachment, obsession, a feeling of waiting for him to choose you, even if he's inconsistent, distant, or non-committal. When a woman becomes too emotionally invested too soon, she starts to shift her energy without realizing it. She begins to prioritize his needs, his moods, and his pace over her own. She starts adjusting her boundaries to keep the connection alive. She may excuse red flags, overthink every text, or even convince herself that mixed signals are just part of the getting to know you phase. But what's really happening is this: she's surrendering her power to potential. She's building a relationship in her mind, while he's still deciding if he even wants one. This kind of emotional overinvestment causes a ripple effect. The more she invests, the more pressure he feels. He senses that she's already emotionally committed, even if nothing solid has been built. And because he hasn't earned that level of loyalty, instead of feeling flattered, he feels suffocated, and often pulls away. That withdrawal only deepens her emotional spiral. She tries harder, reaches out more, tries to decode every silence, and slowly, her self-worth starts to erode. Another common mistake is confusing emotional availability with emotional overexposure. Sharing your heart too quickly, venting your fears too early, or making someone the center of your emotional world within a few weeks doesn't build connection. It builds imbalance. A man hasn't earned your full story just because he listened to it. He hasn't earned your full presence just because he showed interest. Emotional intimacy should build over time, based on trust and mutual effort, not urgency or chemistry alone. Being emotionally open is a strength, but emotional discipline is just as important. You can feel deeply and still move wisely. You can be warm without losing your standards. You can care for someone without turning them into your emotional anchor. The moment you place your peace, your happiness, and your clarity in someone else's hands, you lose the very power that makes you magnetic. You don't have to become cold, distant, or closed off to protect yourself, but you do need to become intentional. Let a man earn your energy. Let his consistency guide your investment. Don't fall in love with words or potential. Fall in love with patterns, actions, and emotional safety. Because the truth is, when you stop over-investing too early, you start seeing people for who they really are, not who you hope they could be. And that shift will save you months, years, and emotional energy you'll never get back. Feminine detachment is one of the most misunderstood yet most magnetic energies a woman can embody. People hear the word detachment and immediately assume it means cold, uninterested, or emotionally unavailable. But real feminine detachment is none of those things. In fact, it's the opposite. It's soft, graceful, and powerful in a quiet, unshakable way. It's the energy of a woman who can feel deeply but doesn't lose herself in what she feels. When a woman is emotionally detached in her feminine power, she doesn't chase. She doesn't overextend herself trying to keep a man interested. She doesn't make excuses for half-effort, mixed signals, or inconsistency. She stays open, but centered. She gives love, but never at the expense of her self-respect. That balance is magnetic, because it creates tension in the best way, a healthy challenge that inspires a man to rise, to pursue, to value her presence. Feminine detachment isn't about withholding. It's about allowing a man to show who he is without trying to control the outcome. Allowing the relationship to unfold without losing yourself in anxiety, overthinking, or false expectations. It's the art of leaning back, emotionally, mentally, and even energetically, and letting the masculine energy move toward you. When you're detached in this way, you stop reacting to every shift in his behavior. You stop clinging to words, and start paying attention to patterns. You stop auditioning for love and start observing who's capable of showing up for it. Detachment protects you from giving too much too soon. It keeps your heart open, but your standards intact. And most importantly, it puts you back in the driver's seat of your emotional life, not as a way to control others, but to remain aligned with your own peace. Men feel this shift immediately. They might not be able to name it, but they sense the difference. There's no grasping energy, no emotional pressure, just a calm, confident woman who doesn't need to convince anyone to choose her, because she already chooses herself. That kind of energy makes you unforgettable. It makes a man wonder, what's different about her? And that question pulls him in, not because you played games, but because you didn't. Most women give their whole heart before anything is built. They lead with effort, emotion, and expectations. Feminine detachment says, I'm not here to prove my worth, I'm here to witness yours. And if it doesn't align with what I deserve, I'll gracefully let go. The power of feminine detachment lies in this truth. Love is not proven through sacrifice. It's sustained through mutual energy, respect, and timing. You don't have to hold on tighter. You just have to be willing to let go when something stops feeling right. And when you do that, when you master the calm confidence of feminine detachment, the right man doesn't run. He comes closer, because you're no longer asking for love, you're attracting it effortlessly. Let's talk about what this mindset shift looks like in real life. Not just in theory, but in the hearts of real women who decided to stop chasing, stop doubting themselves, and completely flip the script. Take Maya, for example. She had been seeing a guy for 6 months. Things started strong, full of chemistry and late-night conversations, but then slowly turned into hot and cold confusion. He became distant, less communicative, and she found herself constantly overanalyzing his words, wondering what she was doing wrong. The old version of Maya would have tried harder, texting more, proving her value, bending her boundaries to keep him close. But one day, something in her clicked. She realized she was emotionally exhausted from giving so much to someone who was only giving half, so she pulled back. Not to play a game, but because she needed her peace more than she needed his attention. She stopped initiating. She stopped explaining herself. She detached, calmly and confidently. And within 2 weeks, he reached out with more presence and clarity than ever before. Why? Because she stopped feeding the cycle and started valuing her own energy. When he came back, she didn't rush in. She watched, she received, and for the first time, he was the one doing the chasing. Then there's Layla. She was in a situationship for nearly a year. She gave emotional girlfriend benefits without the actual title, always hoping that one day he'd wake up and realize she was the one. But all she got in return were excuses, delays, and vague promises. After watching a video just like this, Layla made a decision. No more trying to earn love. No more staying quiet to avoid rocking the boat. She had one honest conversation with him. No drama, just truth. She let him know what she was looking for, and that she was no longer available for the in-between. When he responded with more ambiguity, she walked away, fully. It was painful. But within a few weeks, she noticed something strange. She wasn't obsessing anymore. Her mind was quieter. Her energy returned. She started focusing on her goals, her friendships, her joy, and that emotional space she created. It became fertile ground for something real. Within 3 months, she met a man who was clear, intentional, and emotionally available. All because she stopped making space for confusion. And then there's Zara, who never had an issue attracting men, but always struggled to feel emotionally safe. She realized that her pattern was over-investing way too early, letting a man's potential blind her from the reality of his actions. Once she shifted into emotional detachment and started observing instead of assuming, everything changed. Men still pursued her, but now she was the one deciding who earned her time. She stopped performing for love and started receiving it from the ones who truly saw her worth. These women didn't change who they were, they simply changed what they tolerated, and that shift made all the difference. You can do the same. Reclaiming your power isn't about a one-time decision. It's not just about walking away from the wrong person or setting one boundary and hoping everything magically shifts. Real lasting transformation happens in the small daily habits, the things you do consistently that remind you of who you are and what you're no longer available for. One of the most powerful mindset resets begins in the morning. Before you even reach for your phone, take a moment to ground yourself. Ask, how do I want to feel today? Instead of immediately reacting to messages, notifications, or someone else's energy. When you start your day by checking in with yourself, you teach your mind that your emotions don't revolve around anyone else's behavior. That's how emotional sovereignty begins. Another powerful habit is learning how to sit with discomfort without reacting. When someone pulls away or disappoints you, the immediate impulse is often to reach out, fix it, or over-explain. But pause, breathe, give yourself space, journal it out. Instead of texting him to ease your anxiety, talk to yourself, reassure yourself, because that's what emotional strength really looks like. Showing up for yourself before expecting anyone else to. One of the simplest but most transformative practices is redefining what you give your energy to. Start paying attention to the thoughts you repeat. If you catch yourself obsessing over what he meant by that last message, gently redirect your focus. Ask, is this thought adding to my peace or stealing it? That one question can break cycles of overthinking, self-doubt, and emotional spirals. Speak to yourself the way you want to be spoken to in love. That means using language that uplifts, not undermines. Instead of saying, I hope he likes me, say, I'll see if he's aligned with me. It's a small switch, but it repositions you from needing approval to standing in your worth. When you change the language of your inner world, you start attracting people who mirror that same respect back to you. Make emotional boundaries part of your daily routine. That means deciding in advance what you won't tolerate, not when emotions are high, but when your mind is clear. If you decide, I don't chase clarity, I receive it, then when someone shows up inconsistently, you'll feel empowered to walk away rather than rationalize it. You won't question your standard, because you already defined it. And lastly, move your body. Physical movement isn't just about fitness, it's about shifting emotional energy. Whether it's a walk, dance, yoga, or simply stretching, every time you reconnect with your body, you reconnect with your power. It reminds you that you're alive, grounded, and in control of your own presence, not stuck waiting for someone else to validate it. These habits aren't about becoming a different person. They're about remembering who you were before you started settling. Reinforce your power daily, and soon you won't just feel different, you'll attract different. Not because you chased it, but because you became it. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with from this video, it's this. You don't have to change who you are to be loved. You don't need to shrink, chase, perform, or overcompensate. What you do need is to come back home to yourself, your energy, your clarity, your self-worth, and protect it like it's sacred, because it is. Everything you desire in love begins with how you show up for yourself. The man who respects you, the relationship that feels safe, the connection that grows effortlessly. All of that starts when you stop abandoning yourself to win someone else's affection. It's not about becoming colder or harder. It's about becoming wiser, more intentional, more selective with who gets access to your emotional world. So here's your empowered next step. Start leading with energy, not effort. Let a man show you who he is before you hand over your vulnerability. Stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. Take your time, observe, don't assume. And above all, stop romanticizing potential. Stay grounded in what's actually happening, not what you hope will happen if you give more, wait longer, or prove yourself harder. Detach with love. Release what drains you. Hold space for what aligns. You are not here to earn love by proving your worth. You are here to receive love by standing in it. And if something or someone feels like confusion, inconsistency, or emotional exhaustion, that's not your mirror. That's your signal to step back. And remember who you are. You are the prize, the peace, and the standard. So take this moment to reset. Not from anger, not from bitterness, but from power. You don't chase what's meant for you. You align with it. You let it rise to meet you. Your next chapter isn't about waiting for love. It's about becoming love and letting everything else calibrate to that. You've got this.